How's it going, everyone? Want to go over some really unfortunate news as a smaller studio is officially shutting down. That is Mimimi Games. I'm sorry if I butchered the pronunciation. They actually did the excellent Shadow Tactics, Blades of the Shogun, and more recently they released Shadow Gambit, The Cursed Crew, and Shadow Gambit was a really well-received game. They also did Desperados 3, so them doing these tactics-based games, they've actually done a really good job with all of the titles. Unfortunately, as is the reality with gaming, even if you do drop high-quality titles, sometimes whether it be investment into creating those games, the commercial turnout, etc., it's just not sustainable in the long haul, and that looks like that's what happened here with this studio. So we'll talk about that. Also, I do want to talk about The Darkness potentially getting a remastered release. We'll talk that at the end of this video, but Darkness is a throwback, but it was a really popular game back in the day. We'll see if that ultimately does happen again. More on that at the end of this video. But Shadow Gambit, The Cursed Crew is Mimimi's final game as the studio does officially shut down. In a statement on its website, the studio said the team enjoyed creating games for the past 15 years and are proud of what they accomplished. However, the game development process took a toll. That's, you know, if you have followed crunch, game development culture in general, it can be pretty wild. That's why whenever we talk about game development cycles getting longer and longer, yes, they get longer and longer, but the way to remedy that situation is not really a good one. Really, you would have to completely restructure how games are developed and what the expectation level for games is if you did want to shorten that cycle, but I digress. It was noted in their statement, at the same time, dedicating the past decade and a half of our lives working on increasingly ambitious games took a heavy personal toll on us and our families. After the release of Shadow Gambit, we decided it was the right time to prioritize our well-being and pull the brakes instead of signing up for another multi-year production cycle. Mimimi will no longer create any new games, but they will continue to fully support Shadow Gambit. The studio has already been working on a patch for the game. It is available on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series, and PC. The reviews for the game were rather strong, and generally speaking, it was just a well-received game all around. 1,100 Steam user reviews, 94% of those reviews are positive, and 85 on Metacritic as well. IGN giving it a 9 out of 10, GameSpot giving it a 9 out of 10, and again, generally speaking, the reception has been fairly strong. And it is a little bit of a bummer to see that the game will ultimately be the last one that is put out. But it seems like they have good reason for not continuing to release games, and hopefully everybody that does want to continue into game development, they can stick around and obviously find employment elsewhere. There's obviously a talented studio and talented people within that studio, but these games just take years and years to develop because of the expectation levels for these games. Look, I love the days back in the late 2000s where you had Naughty Dog putting out an Uncharted game every 2 years. You had Insomniac putting Ratchet and Clank out every 2 years. Well, I mean, they still kind of do that, but you guys get the idea. Back in the day, these game developers were putting out games so quickly, and I mean, yes, the games have gone far more ambitious than what they were 12 to 15 years ago, but in terms of quality, and it might just be nostalgia speaking, I don't know, the late 2000s were pretty damn awesome, and the early 2010s were pretty damn awesome. You guys remember when Guerrilla put out Killzone 2 in 2009, Killzone 3 in 2011, and then, as, you know, memes as Shadowfall was, that came out in 2013. And they were consistently cycling those games. Now you gotta wait 5 years in between Horizon games, but you know, you look at Horizon, that's a massive scale project, but just goes to show that's sustainable for some studios that have immense backing and they have an immense workload, but they also have the support of a Sony and whatnot. In the case of Mimimi Games, Shadow Gambit was a self-published title, so you have to keep in mind with that as well. You know, it is what it is, but hopefully with titles like Shadow Tactics, Desperados 3, and Shadow Gambit, they can be happy and satisfied with the legacy they'll leave. Especially in like the tactics genre, they've done a pretty good job as far as their outings in gaming go. Alright, moving on from that, The Darkness of all games could be getting a remaster from Night Dive Studios. In response to a tweet that noted, I've been having an urge to play The Darkness again, but I don't feel like booting up or turning on my PS3. Can somebody please remaster and port this to PC sometime? And then Stephen Kick, the CEO of Night Dive Studios, noted it's on the list. I don't know what that means in terms of how far along it is, or if it's just something in the planning phase, if they're just talking about doing it, because you got to get the rights and everything like that for it. Night Dive Studio has been around for a while, and they've put out a lot of titles. They've done Rise of Triad Ludicrous Edition. They worked on Quake 2, the recent remastered release, Turok 3 Shadow of Oblivion, Blade Runner Enhanced Edition, Power Slave, Quake, Shadow Man Remastered, and so on and so forth. It seems like they have an expertise in working in the porting realm, and the remastering realm. Darkness was a game that, again, was very popular back in the mid-2000s. I want to say it came out in 2007, but if you guys remember, if you guys were, like, gaming at this time and you were following, like, the gaming media, this game had, like, a lot of promotion and advertising attached to it as well. Like, I remember going into GameStop and you would constantly see banners for the Darkness. It's much like Dark Sector. I feel like Dark Sector had, like, a lot of promotion as well, but Dark Sector ended up in the bargain bin, like, 3 months after release. The Darkness, I feel like, held up in value. I don't exactly remember. And yeah, Darkness came out in mid-2000, June 25th of 2007. Man, that is a while ago. And then it did ultimately get a sequel, The Darkness 2, which I thought was a really, really solid first-person shooter. That came out quite a bit later in 2012, but that turned out to be a solid game as well. Darkness was an over-the-top FPS, mature, gritty. You had all of these wild powers you could use as well. I remember enjoying the game, and on Metacritic, the PlayStation 3 version has an 80, the Xbox 360 version has an 82, so, you know, relatively well-received game. Now, if this game came out at a good price point, like at a $19.99 or $29.99, I think just from, like, nostalgia standpoint, a lot of people would check it out. Am I saying it's going to sell millions upon millions of copies? No, but if you were able to either do a straight remaster of the Darkness or bundle in Darkness and Darkness 2 into some sort of remaster collection, I think that'll do fairly well. Now, to be fair, Darkness 2 is available on PC already, and the game's done fairly well on there. So, for consoles, though, and you're talking about, you know, PlayStation 5 can't go back to PS3, having Darkness and Darkness 2 in one collection would be pretty good. And Darkness 2 was actually done by Digital Extremes, who worked on Dark Sector. Kind of wild how all these things connect. I didn't even know that was the case, so that's kind of wild as well. But Darkness was done by Starbreeze Studios, who at this point are working on the Payday games. They are obviously busy at work with Payday 3, but if you're talking about a remastered collection, obviously it wouldn't be handled by Starbreeze themselves. At least you wouldn't think, but we'll see how that turns out. I think that could do pretty well. And what I've noticed, if you look at like a THQ Nordic, man, they're able to bring back these quirky games, these old IPs, and do really well with them. Like, Kingdoms of Amalur did fairly well in that game. That game has a storied history with what happened back in, I want to say, 2012 when that came out. You look at what they've done with SpongeBob games, like, those have done really well, and obviously SpongeBob's a big IP, but you get the idea. I think there's room for, you know, games from the mid to late 2000s to get remastered, be priced accordingly, and then find a new audience. I think that's always a possibility, especially with a game like Darkness, where I feel like there is a cult following attached to it. So we'll see if that ultimately happens, but that'll do it for me. Again, unfortunate news with Mimimi Games as Shadow Gambit, the Cursed Crew will be their last outing. Really a bummer there, but hopefully everybody a part of the production of this game can find happiness, and whether they want to continue with game development or not, hopefully they find out what they want to do, and Darkness could potentially be getting a remastered release. That's going to do it for me. Sound off with all of your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching, and goodbye. Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and if you're already subscribed, do us a favor and hit the bell icon. This way you'll be notified whenever we post a new video. That's the best way to keep up with all of our uploads, and we usually try to upload 2 videos a day. And with the bell icon hit, you'll be notified whenever we do upload a video. As always, thanks for watching.